Center of Weirdness, a hilarious flight into the silly world of a podcast that might as well not exist. Josh and Skinner, two loners on a crusade to champion the cause of the dumb, the bad, the weird, in a world of programs that operate above the ratings.
Hello and welcome to Center of Weirdness, the weird podcast about very weird stuff, but mostly it's just TV episodes. And I actually should call this Summer of Weirdness. We've been away for a little bit of time. Life got in the way, but now we're back, and it's summertime. And I'm Josh, and with me as always is Summer Skinner. Hey, Skinner.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the beach of your ears.
Yeah, we're like a seashell. You put it to your ear and you can hear, instead of the ocean noise, you hear a great podcast.
We're now available on any podcatcher, the Zune, Shells.
So it's Summer of Weirdness, but also Summer Nights, because for the rest of the summer, for the next 4 episodes, we are diving into a show that we have discussed before briefly because of its connection to another show. But it's a show that I have really no familiarity with other than like kind of the general sort of goofiness of the premise, and that is Knight Rider. We're going to be covering two of the big two-parter episodes, so that's 4 episodes total, that have to do with his sort of half-brother, I guess, Michael Knight's half-brother Garthe, also played by David Hasselhoff.
You know, here's something really amazing to me, and that is we're like, as a society, not like just Western society or just anything, but like the last 50 to 60 years, we're the first culture on the planet that understands on a really molecular level and grand level that we live on a finite existence. That at some point, like every culture has their own doomsday scenario, doomsday legends, doomsday cults. Yeah.
Sure.
But we know, because we understand how things work on an elemental level and how things actually are, not just rumor, space, and ghosts, that at some point the sun is going to expand and swallow us whole. We all have to live with that in a way that no culture before us, before the last 100 years, understood the nature of our world. That at some point, the thing that gives us life will destroy everything, will burn away the oceans and eventually the planet. But in return, we have an episode of Knight Rider with 2 David Hasselhoffs.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's very poignant way to get into discussing this. So before we jump into the episode proper, in which not much happens, I kind of want to get your take on this in terms of like your familiarity with Knight Rider, because like I'll give mine, but like I said up front, very little familiarity with this show. Like I knew the general concept. Of course, I knew the theme song and the opening credits, but like didn't really know much else about it other than kind of the general strokes. So like, where are you with your sort of Knight Rider understanding?
Now, I mean, I watched Knight Rider when it was on. I was 4 through 8, so I mean, there's not a whole lot that I really remembered. I remember from syndication or things like the Mr. Feeney was the car. He would chide Michael, and like I had a toy of the car.
Oh,
but
cool.
But like as far as beyond the broad strokes, literally nothing stuck as far as what the crime solving car actually did and everything
Uh-huh.
else. And having watched this episode, the first of a 2-part episode, I understand why now, because nothing happened.
It's very weird. So like we specifically picked, we were thinking about doing a Knight Rider because I think this must have come up at some point when we were talking about Nightman, because both shows were created by Glenn A. Larson. He created Knight Rider and I think helped bring Nightman to television. Which
Also,
is interesting.
He did Magnum PI, BJ, and the Bear.
Yeah, this dude has a very vast career. I feel like we will go back to his stuff at some point. I mean, he did Manimal, which is also a show worth watching. And helped develop the $6 Million Man and like all this other stuff. So he's I guess worked on the original Battlestar Galactica. I think we talked about it, but the dude's been around and he's done some stuff. But so like I can understand why you wouldn't remember anything about the show. I don't think that anybody would say like, oh man, I loved Knight Rider. Like it was, the stories really drew me in because this one is weird. And I didn't realize that I didn't realize the whole, like his face used to look different because he was like a police detective. He got shot in the face and then he got his face like redone via plastic surgery and got a new name. So he was Michael Arthur Long and then he got turned into Michael Knight by some billionaire.
Which, in a show where the hook is this car is indestructible and has a personality,
yeah,
it's really odd to make a really complicated backstory, like almost needlessly and confusing backstory for what is essentially the warm body in the seat.
Yeah, it's very strange because it's like it also implies that like this guy was someone important worth saving. And what we get because I think I just sort of naturally equate Hasselhoff with his persona and with like because like I just see him and then I kind of know him as like the like kind of more like the Baywatch guy. And because I haven't seen a ton of that show, but I've seen like bits and pieces of that show. And like a couple episodes here and there. So I have like a slight bit more familiarity with Baywatch than I do with Knight Rider. But then also Hasselhoff became kind of a meme in the sort of Chuck Norris vein for a while. And I think it was like partly that video where he's drunk eating a burger on the floor, which, we've all been there. I think it was partially that. And then he just started showing up in things he became himself as like the sort of figure.
Yeah, as like, isn't it funny that David Hasselhoff is in this?
Yeah, and then I think the whole kind of goofiness of him being a very popular musician in Germany and like
well, Norm Macdonald helped with that.
yeah, sure. So it's like this like weird thing where you just sort of see him as like the Hoff, that character.
Well, here's why I think he's playing himself in this show.
Well, okay, go ahead, and then I'll say what I was going to say.
I want to preface this before you come up with your theory, just so maybe it's a compare and contrast. Because we get two performances in this episode, and as Garth, it is comically the worst performance of acting you'll ever see. So Michael as this bland guy who says "pal" a lot, like he's Vince McMahon, and looks confused and disinterested and is more interested in looking handsome. I think that's just him. Like that to me, like if he's so bad at if you ask anyone in one of these situations, like you had to play your evil twin, which isn't what this guy actually is, but in this essence it is.
Yeah.
Like most actors are like, oh, I'm so tired of playing the goody. This is such a fucking great time to play. Like I had the best time of my life playing the evil version of myself and really hamming it up. He has zero fun with it. He does the exact opposite of what everyone else does about it. So I think that's him being boring and slow and stilted is him trying to act. So I think his weird, like disinterested, too cool for this, check out my hairy chest performance as Michael that's who David Hasselhoff was at the time.
Yeah. So that is an interesting take on it, and I think you might be right. What I was going to say though is that like Wilton Knight we didn't see the pilot, so who knows why he decided that this guy deserved to be saved. But the Michael Knight performance that we get in this, he just seems so dumb and disinterested, and it's just like, what a loser. Like, why did this guy pick him?
And to be fair, everyone, like, for an episode that apparently has somewhat high stakes and a betrayal that I don't quite understand, and confusing rule set, everyone seems like it's super low stakes and they don't actually care. Like,
yeah, it's very, very casual.
Someone gets casually poisoned by a bad guy, and then that bad guy kills another person, and then they simply walk into their house and act like, like, let's have a back and forth with no real stakes. Like, he's like, oh,
there's like no concern for
no concern. Like, he's like, oh, it's a one man. It's something I have to do. And like you act like, oh, what's your plan? Its plan is to go in there and go, come on. you try to kill me and you kill this other guy. Come on. Like, she already killed somebody and almost killed you. Why did it, like, and apparently never crossed his mind that if I walk into her house and just act like we're old friends again, she won't kill me. Like, why wouldn't she?
Yeah, it's just such a weird thing because, like, we find out a lot of, like, interesting backstory, and also it kind of casts Wilton Knight, the guy who kind of who was responsible for Michael, still being alive and creating this organization, the Foundation for Law and Government, known as FLAG.
What's worse, FLAG or Kitt?
Knight Industries 2000. Because this was in the early 80s when 2000 was a big number and the future.
To be fair, I'm going to say right now, there's two things about this show that absolutely work and carry. Like, every time like it's padded with this in this episode, I had to think, well, that's what everyone wants anyway, so good on you for doing it. One, the car is cool.
Yeah, sure.
Like, the powers are now kind of goofy and everything about it are kind of goofy and like you're questioning like, so why did they do this? But like the fact it was everyone really cared besides the fact it talked and dropped missiles. Like, it was a cool black car that had a red light that went back and forth in the front, and everyone loved that red light that went back and forth in the front. And hey, it's still cool. Two, the theme music, which they use liberally throughout the episode, is fucking S tier. Like, it is.
Yeah, I mean it is
maybe top 5 TV theme music.
Yeah,
that's ever been made.
That is why that's the thing that I know. That's the thing that most people know, is that, like, because the theme song is so memorable, the opening credits are so memorable, and like they're it's just kind of embedded in pop culture. So
now, mind you, like, I don't watch modern TV shows, so they may still have opening theme songs and stuff.
No, not like this.
But not like not this like specific like corny level, but like, how much did this add? Because it is tremendous. Like, it tells you the music itself tells you this show is fucking cool and this car is cool. Why? Because listen to this goddamn beat.
Which that song was what you said sampled by Busta Rhymes in a show. So like,
it's
or in a song.
It's really fucking really goddamn good. And I'm sure like the entire point of every reboot or bringing back of this show was mostly just to hear the song, get more out of that music.
Yeah. So this time we're talking about Goliath Part 1, which apparently was Part 1 and 2 were aired together as a feature-length episode and then cut into 2 separate episodes for syndication. So that makes a lot of sense because of how much this is dragged out. Like,
there is the first... there is no dialogue in the first 5 minutes. No exaggeration. First 5 minutes, there is no dialogue in this episode. And while you could say, "Hey, what? That's pretty cool. What a chance to take." I don't think it was even meant as anything other than like, "Let's get it started in here." Played at like 1/4 speed because it's just here's these long shots of the desert, which are beautiful in standard definition. And there's guy doing this character who we'll never see again, jumping down. Ron, he's referenced. He's part of the plot, but like he's jumping around in his cowboy.
I wonder if
boots
we're
in
going
the
to find
desert.
out in part 2 that Ron isn't dead.
I assume he's not dead.
He's got to still be alive
because I think you're going to have to pretend Garth is killed again at the end of this episode, so he can come back later. But like at the same time, like that's not a happy ending for an 82, 83, 84 show. So like it has to be more like the brother and sister are reunited.
Mm-hmm.
That would be more of a happy ending, and then Michael can go like, "Hey, I got your brother back. This isn't gonna fuck itself." So like the sister character is so perfunctorily there to be passed around. I don't know what, like, I didn't even realize that the mission he was on, that he was pulled away from to go to the mission, was actually the same mission. Like that.
Yeah, it's all connected because
it's all connected. But why is it connected? Why would he just happened to be on a beat that was also related to what was going to be the bigger beat?
Yeah, I think it just kind of magical. Well, so the episode opens, which we talked about the great theme song, but we should also say that the great narration that covers the thing, which we've talked about before on shows that kind of have those sort of intros that and opening credits that kind of give you what the show is, which is great. This is very helpful. I'm going to read you the intro here. Knight Rider, a shadowy flight into the dangerous world of a man who does not exist. And we found out too that I guess this is the voice of Wilton Knight, the guy who created the company. He dies in the pilot, but his voice is still heard on the opening of the episode.
He also created the main villain of this episode with his semen.
That's right. Michael Knight, a young loner on a crusade to champion the cause of the innocent, the helpless, the powerless in a world of criminals who operate above the law. A young loner.
A young loner. How young is he? I guess. How old is Hasselhoff in 82?
It's that era. Again, we've talked about this before too, but it's that era of like never knowing what age people were at any time. Like he was born in 52, so he was 30 in 82.
He's 32 in season. He's 31 in season 2.
Yeah, exactly.
He could be 45.
Yes, it's that thing where you never know. I mean, he's 70 now and still looks pretty good. But it's
we stay out of the sun more and we're baby longer now. Due to finances and products, and
sure,
we don't, as of turning 16, don't sit all day in a garage getting tailpipe smoke in our face to be men. But like,
yeah,
it is incomprehensible that he could be any age.
So I just had a birthday. I turned 38,
and we're gonna talk about this in a second. But yeah,
I turned 38, and he was, and I feel like he looks older than me at 31 or 32, whatever he is in this episode.
He doesn't look bad. He doesn't look old.
No.
He just looks indeterminately adult.
Yes, it's that weird thing of like, I think that just in the 70s and 80s, people just looked older, but not like they looked bad. They just looked like they were older than you, no matter how old you are. Like, I don't know if that's just a weird perspective thing. Like, I always think of myself as younger than the people in shows. Like, like these kinds of shows from this era. I'm not talking about, modern day stuff, but like, anything that is older that was made before I was born, when I watch it, I think that those people are older than me, even if they are younger in the show.
Well, like even Rebecca Holden as like as the secretary / chief mechanic / maybe romance. Not
no,
really
I think there's
much.
no romance with them, I think, because like then she gets written out of the show to bring back the actual romantic lead.
Patricia McPherson, but like she's younger looking than him, but she also could be anywhere between 22 and 38. She just has big hair, and you know, she looks like she's this, you know, that son I talked about earlier that one day will eat us all. Like, it has taken some toll on her. It's really it's just it's hard to explain, and everyone who grew up, you know, watching 80s and early 90s stuff will understand this, like that there is, before our generation, like there's people in the 60s and 70s and 80s and going back, aged quicker and kind of stayed at a certain spot.
I will tell you that Rebecca Holden still looks great. She's a singer. Everyone should go and check out her website because it's like your aunt built a website, and it's great. So
that is, I miss everyone having their own personal website.
Yeah, I mean her. It does tell me in my browser that this website is not secure, so it could be opening me up to all kinds of potentially.
Squarespace wouldn't do that to you.
Potentially bad viruses. But yeah, I think that like for whatever reason they wrote out the first person who was the chief mechanic, and apparently there was some romantic stuff with Michael in season 1. Then they wrote her off the show for some reason, and then brought in Rebecca Holden, and then she got written off the show because fans basically were mad, and apparently I guess Hasselhoff wanted to bring and the guy who plays Devon Miles wanted to bring back the first person, Patricia McPherson. So then they brought her back in season 3 and 4, and then just never
Beverly
mentioned
Crusher
it.
Situation, huh?
Just never mentioned why they did it. So we'll never know, because I don't know that I'll ever watch any more after we finish our Summer Night series.
Don't you want to slowly and calmly pass some time?
I mean, maybe. I can't, like, the other episodes have to be faster paced than this. It has to be because this was supposed to be a 2-parter. But then you look through the list of episodes from season 2, and there's a couple different 2-parters. So it's like, were they all like this? Did they really just take their time?
We've watched a couple car shows now where it really is clear that with a car show, you can really, really pad it out at 45 minutes with just car footage.
That's true.
In this case, stock travel footage.
Yes, they do that. They for sure have, like we said, the first 5 minutes, it's mostly footage of the Nevada desert, which is beautiful. By the time this episode comes out, I will actually have gone to Nevada and Utah. I'm going to be in Vegas for a couple days where part of this episode takes place. So I'll go over to Caesars, see if I can find Rita, and see if she'll help me out at the blackjack table.
She'll just start casually mentioning your evil double, and you won't even blink. Okay,
so yeah, so we open with the beautiful shots of the Southwest. This guy Ron, who we learn later is named Ron, running around, and he's trying to take photos of some stuff. And so he sneaks into this facility, this warehouse, where there's a bunch of things going on that we don't really understand yet. He sees a limo pull up and a man go inside. This man in a leisure suit, who we will soon come to learn who he is. And inside, he's taking a bunch of pictures of all these soldiers running around and doing stuff. And he's hiding in between what looks like stacks of filter furnaces or furnace filters. Yeah. And
it's very specifically, like, when you say soldiers in the desert in America, I'm sure that people who haven't watched this would assume that you're talking about like a militia of Americans.
Yeah, no. These are like African soldiers. What we learn later is the Pan-African Liberation Movement.
Why?
We'll get into why, I think, a little bit later. The
show kind of gets into it a little bit.
A little bit. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but But there's some fun Elon Musk parables with Garth that we're gonna get to. Did we mention that the other guy's named Garth that he's playing?
Not Goliath. Goliath is his vehicle.
Yeah, Goliath is his vehicle. So the name of the episode is Goliath, but the guy is named Garth. I don't know why they chose that name for Michael Knight's doppelganger.
No,
Michael Knight's a cool name.
Michael Knight is the doppelganger of Garth.
Oh, okay. Fair point. Good point.
So when making him, they picked a cooler name.
Well, they just let him keep his regular name. They just changed his last name.
But yeah, as far as creators,
so wait, okay, wait
Garth,
a minute.
He had to have a name start with G, and it was either this or Gary.
Gary Knight.
Gerald.
That's cool. Why did it have to be G? Because of Goliath?
Yes. Because Michael Knight starts with K.
No. Oh, I see.
His name's not Michael Ryder, which that's a hockey player.
Well, but shouldn't Garth's vehicle start with a K too? Killer?
No, it's Goliath because it's super big. It's really big.
That's true.
Super large. It's just enormous. It's a giant semi.
Yeah.
It's the same size as every other semi.
So he goes, this guy is creeping around, and we see a man step out of the shadows. We see that it's someone who looks remarkably like David Hasselhoff, except he has a mustache, a little bitty, like little Van Dyke thing, little soul patch thing, and longer sideburns, and a slightly better perm.
And he might be a little more orange.
He is a little more tan. You're right. I think the more I saw him on screen, I realized, yes, he's looking a little more tan. He's also got an earring, which is fun. And he shoots at this guy with his gun cane. He's walking around with a cane.
Which he never uses again.
Which he doesn't. That's also very strange. Yeah, he has a gun cane that he doesn't seem to need. I think it's just there for looks, but then he uses it to shoot at this guy. And we don't see the guy die, so that's why I'm assuming that this guy's probably still alive.
What just drives me crazy about it is that it's a gun cane, but I can't see how it would possibly work.
No, I don't know. Yeah, I don't
know.
You
couldn't. There's no way you could hide a gun mechanism in this cane. It's just a cane.
Yeah,
it's basically finger phone.
So, So we then cut to Michael driving around in Kitt, going to Las Vegas because he's going to help out on a case. He's looking for this woman named Rita, whose brother has gone missing. We'll soon learn it's the same guy we just saw who got shot. And he's going to go find out some information from her. And then at the same time, we're kind of getting to see these other people that work with Michael at the flag organization. There's Devon. What's his name? Devon Miles.
Devon Miles. Of course, he have to be that.
And he's basically like the chief or whatever in any kind of cop show where he's giving him the information about the case that he has to go, solve. And then we also meet April Curtis, the chief technician, who seems to be his secretary as well, and reminds him that he has a date with Elizabeth Knight, which is the widow of Wilton Knight, the man who created Flag and who rebuilt Michael's face. So lots of information here that we have to kind of deal with. I don't know if Elizabeth Knight was ever in the show frequently.
No, she's only credited for 2 episodes. So these two.
That's interesting because I would feel like if they were going to introduce this plot where Wilton Knight's wife is coming to do this, and now she's turned out, she's a bad guy. It's like, that could be like a big shocking turn. But if she's never been a character until this point, it's just kind of wow, all right.
Which is weird because she's never been a character. Her husband founded this. They've never mentioned her before. Miles goes there very casually, like they're old friends. But no one seems even slightly surprised that she's actually bad.
Yeah, they're just kind of very casual about it because she dumps something into Devon's drink and then he kind of passes out later, and we realize at some point that she gave him basically a truth serum that she was used to get some sort of formula out of him. And we learn later that the formula is for Kitt's molecular bonded shell, which they say multiple times throughout this episode.
Apparently, the shell of this car is so amazing that, one, we'll get into the rules of how the formula is kept so it is safe, but a single armored vehicle with this shell could take down governments.
Yeah, it's very unclear why this one thing is the thing that, like, because they also drop stuff about how, like, Elizabeth Knight would wipe out half the planet if she could. Like real Thanos energy.
I want to really dig on this one for a second, considering that this is apparently Elizabeth's first introduction, and they talk like we know who Garth is, Gerald, Goliath, but apparently this is his introduction as well, because they explain to Michael who he is, but like the other two characters act like, oh yeah, Garth, you know Garth,
yeah,
the evil son of the owner, and like until it is full, and Michael has zero interest in it until it is really explained who he is and why he looks like that. But like, it is Michael's non-reaction to it a couple times made you think like, well, he's come up against him before. No, everyone, like the fact that the creator of the Good Guys organization has both a super evil wife and a super evil son was just dropped in this episode, from what I can tell.
Yeah.
If not, do not contact me. I do not care. But like, and it makes zero impact.
Well, okay.
That to me is like a major thing. Like, you know, like, hey, if Starfleet was run by fucking Moriarty, like, and his, like, at some, like, the fact that like, they take it, we forgot the ex-boss's wife is evil and would kill half of humanity if she could, but she's a really good socialite and she had wonderful dinner parties. And it's like, wait, how do you casually introduce this idea?
Well, okay, so I want to go back to some things. So, Wilton Knight, you know, he saved Michael for whatever reason. He saw something in him that he wanted to do. He made him look like his son, who was serving, as we learn, 3 consecutive life sentences in an African prison for some sort of crimes that he committed down there. So he wants him to look like his son because he assumes that no one will ever see his son again. So there, already, to me, there's something weird going on there. Like he's trying to kind of like, he knows his son is evil. So he's like, I'm going to remake my son in a better way. And I'm going to do
Garth
good.
has every reason to be pissed about that.
Of course. Like, I'm going to do good. But then also, he adopted a 30-year-old man? What?
Very odd. All of it is very odd. And
I mean, I know they're not like officially, like it's not his official son, but he did give him his last name. And in all the things, they kind of reference Garth as being like Michael's half brother.
And another thing, if the idea was he was giving him his face, and so that nobody would see Garth again, and he's making a better son, and like if the idea was like, hey, I'm replacing my son in society with this better man, so they think, oh, everyone forgets how evil my son was. He would also name him Garth. He's supposed to be a different person. He let him still stay Michael.
But what about the people who did know who Garth was? Like
everyone Michael works with, they just never have mentioned it.
Yeah, they never thought it was strange. Like, hey, Wilton, why are you making him look like your evil son? Why not make him look a little different? Like, this is weird to me because I know your son, and it's very strange to be looking at someone who looks just like him.
Okay, so like even the replacement mechanic secretary sidekick knows who Garth is and knows the backstory.
Yeah.
It's no surprise to her. And she wasn't there in the first season.
Yeah.
She's not the first person in this role in the continuity of this world. at some point, wouldn't they have mentioned this to Michael? Like, even if like they're like, like, oh, well, he would never have to find out because Garth will never get out of prison. They even do the somehow Palpatine returned
They
line.
do. That's so funny. They're like, somehow he got out of jail and now he's back in America.
And they say like, we're going to be told at some point how it is because they're like,
Well, we get more explanation of his return than we do of Palpatine's.
But like at the same time, they're like, oh, we don't have to tell him because we'll never see Garth again. All the better reason to tell him because there's no consequence of him running into Garth then. Like, by the way, you were given this guy's son's face.
But also that goes
so you should know this in case you have any awkward conversations with somebody who knew him for the entire adult life he led.
Yeah, that goes back to my original thinking though, that Michael is just not very smart. Like, and it's kind of funny why this guy was picked to kind of use this great piece of technology and like solve these crimes and stuff, because it's like, did he never once go, hey, how did you pick this face for me? Like, how did you decide that I would look like this?
Did he like did his benefactor like take all the pictures of his family, like family pictures of Garth around the house and just kind of push the frame down when Michael came to visit it? But like, I also, maybe they picked somebody with no intellectual curiosity because they would not be they would not have they could not be corrupted by the power he's been given in this car because he wouldn't think of what he could do with it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
He doesn't have the creativity and mental capacity to dream big with what this car could do, which apparently could take down entire countries.
It's like Wilton Knight's like talking to the plastic surgeons, and they're like, well, what should we do about the face? And he's just like, he's like rummaging around in his wallet, like, just here. He just throws a photo of Garth at them. He's like, just do this.
So in most, we're gonna see now with Michael in Vegas talking to the sister about stuff. I want to point out in 99% of identical double evil twin episodes of every show, especially in the 80s, but to this day, the plot is everyone mistakes the good guy, including from Glenn Larson, Space Face in Nightman.
Yeah.
Everyone mistakes the person who looks like you for you, and you get blamed for what they do, and you don't run into them at all. Instead, the sister tells him about Garth immediately and how he looks exactly like you, except for your exact opposite.
Yeah.
Of which Michael shows no interest.
No.
And then Michael turns and sees his exact double at the casino. He sees him right away.
Yeah.
And
we're also
told
doesn't
that
seem that concerned.
Everyone who's involved with Garth and what he's doing knows that he isn't Michael. There is not a moment in this episode where someone sees Garth do something evil and thinks, oh my God, I can't believe Michael Knight did that. That is not the plot at all. Not even hinted at, nothing.
But then that would mean that he would have to shave off his great mustache.
And for one, someone's like, well, Michael doesn't look like that. He's not that orange. His perm isn't nice. And he doesn't have facial hair, so it's not him.
Yeah.
Which, good on it, but it's just really weird when he sees his double fucking, like, okay, it's been 10 minutes because of all the padding. But as far as like actual scenes with actual dialogue, he sees him right away and he's told by another character, yeah, he looks just like you. It's really weird, except for, but get this, he's super evil. And Michael at this point does not know his connection to Garth. He just sees this guy who just happens to look just like him, just like how our friend Baze sends pictures of everyone who's kind of skinny with red hair and a beard and says, hey, Josh, this is you, to you on Facebook every single week. He just looks at me and he's like, oh.
That's weird.
That's weird. Oh, look, that pig has a curly tail and runs after it. He has literally zero. He is told by this person whose case he's on that she is working with his exact double who's trying to hit on her, except for he's evil. And his reaction is, I do not care.
Well,
And then he sees him, and he's like, his reaction is, just another person.
I would say that most of his interactions with Rita are pretty much that, like her talking a lot about stuff and him just kind of looking dumbly out at her.
There's one scene where she's saying a lot at him, and he literally, the scene ends with him staring off in space and not responding to him. And she didn't say anything to him that was like made him think. It's just they forgot to write dialogue.
Well, no, that scene is great because he finally goes and talks to her, and she's like, "Well, I know that Garthe had something to do with my brother's disappearance, and I'm gonna figure out what it is, and I'll do whatever it takes to get close to him to figure this out." And then she's like, he was talking about something, saying like Goliath is born, and then Michael Knight goes, Goliath. And then he stands off and just stares into space. And it's like, we haven't even heard that until now. So we don't even know what that is.
It's not like he's come across in his other work, Project Goliath.
Yeah.
It should mean nothing to him. That word alone means more to him than, by the way, I think your exact double.
Well, it would have been
who's evil.
It would have been cool
if
it would have been cool if he had heard that from somewhere else, or like if it had been mentioned on the audio tapes, like because he's so apparently Rita says like, hey, he left me this key. It's for a locker with some audio tapes in it. We think that something, he recorded something that might give some clues as to where he went or what was going on. So, Michael's spending part of the episode trying to find where this key might go, and eventually they nail it down to two different places. He goes to this bus station with all these lockers in it and tries to find the locker by basically using the key on every possible locker, which feels like it's a thing that the people who run that wouldn't let you do, but
it's very sus.
Yeah. But so eventually he finds these tapes, and he goes through the tapes, and they're talking about like, it's like he says something about Red Bluffs is like something that's going on. He knows that there's something going on with that, but he doesn't know exactly what it is. And so he's doing all that, but it would have made sense if on the tape he was like, I've heard something about Red Bluffs and then something about Project Goliath, and they're like, oh, okay, cool. Then you can kind of tie it all together. But that never comes up. The tenuous connections here are kind of silly, and it doesn't, like, unless somebody says something earlier and we just missed it, but I don't think they do.
There's no reason for them to have come up with it. And it's not like we haven't seen what he's doing as an audience, which once again is always my least favorite thing of the audience knows what's happened right away, and then we have to wait and watch for the rest of the cast for 40 minutes catch up to where you were 3 minutes into the episode.
Yeah, because we keep seeing the truck, so we know that it's a big truck. Like we know that that's what it is, and then we learn early on that they're trying to steal the formula. And very much like Coca-Cola, they split the formula among multiple people. So we have, one person somewhere else has it, and another person has it somewhere else.
He's making Goliath zero.
And I do like that. Devon, he's like, all right, well, we got to go to Rio to look for this one guy who has part of the formula because we haven't heard from him. And we need to figure it out. The third guy, though, he's fine. He's just off on his own, doing his own thing. There's no reason to invoke him. But because of the way the formula is set up, if two of the three people put their portions together, they'll have the full formula. So what is the point of having a third person?
It's a 10th man logic. Like it's. I don't know. It leads nothing to the plot.
Yeah.
And they go to Rio, and we get stock footage of fabulous Rio vacation for what, a minute?
Yeah, they bought the Rio stock footage, and they're going to use the entire package. They got to show you and let you know that this hotel room set that they filmed in LA is definitely in Rio.
Yeah, like all we see in Rio is this hotel set, and somebody is calling, and we find out that that person's dead.
Yeah.
our mechanic can tell exactly how long he's been dead.
He's
by
been dead for
touching him.
24 hours.
She carbon dates him with her fingerprints.
She checked his oil levels.
Yes. And then the person's like, and then there's a picture of Barbara there. Elizabeth doesn't matter. Barbara. Elizabeth there, and the hotel worker's like, that's her companion. And then,
He immediately identifies it. And it's like all these things that it takes our characters way too long to catch up with. You're right. It's like, it is a very frustrating aspect of knowing, like sometimes that can be used to good effect. Like Columbo, great example of a show where you know who the killer is before the episode is over and before, like, as the episode begins. And the whole point is like, how is he going to solve it? And like, why did they do it? And like all of this stuff. So they make it work. And this is like not that, because like we know that he's doing something with a truck. We've seen it. We know that he's trying to steal the molecular bonded shell of Kitt, so we can kind of start to put two and two together. The interesting aspects of like, granted, they're not going to talk about these things in 1982 on this like fun little TV show, but like the implications of why did this guy make me look exactly like his son? Like what was the intention there? The fact that this guy looks exactly like me is very strange. It's giving me identity crisis. Like, I'm not a real person because I'm just a copy of somebody else. Like, there's all these like interesting directions they could go, but Hasselhoff ain't playing that kind of emotion. So
no, and so like the only payoff for that is it's given as a reason why Garth wants to kill Michael. Michael is confused that it happened, but brushes it off within seconds. Like, it's not his journey. Like, to him, like, he's like, why did he make my face like that anyway? But like, it's just used as they want to do an evil twin episode, even though they do any of the evil twin tropes, as he wants to kill Michael because Michael looks like him.
Yeah, that is kind of...
So he doesn't have to have a deeper motivation for having personal animosity at Michael. And it should be noted, once again, that he's playing Garth with the most monotone, boring performance you've ever seen. His entire thing is he stands up really straight, he stares off, not at anybody, and he talks slowly without emotion.
Yeah.
And it's not like he's evil and creepy. It just looks like he doesn't know how to fucking act.
Like, it would be fun. It would be fun if he were a little more unhinged. Like, but I don't think that Hasselhoff can really play that. At least not. He probably couldn't at this time.
At this time, or he didn't want to. He apparently hated doing this episode because he was asked to do 2 roles for the same cost. He's not in it that much.
Yeah,
and Miles has multiple solo scenes.
Yeah, the thing that I kind of I don't know. I mean, I imagine that obviously we haven't watched part 2 yet, so that's coming soon, but there has to be some moments where they interact with each other. So I'm curious how they handle that. Like,
poorly, probably.
If it's a very obvious stunt double that doesn't really look like him, or if there's like if they have a fight, because that's kind of what you want. When you have 2 characters that look alike, you want them to fight, and you want someone to not know which one they need to shoot because they're confused, or them to mistake one for the other or whatever. So I'm hoping that that's what happens in part 2, that we get some moment where, like, that's not Michael, that's Garth, or that's not Garth, that's Michael. Like, one of those kind of things.
Just do something that
we haven't talked about.
Like, just use the fact that they look alike for any reason. Like, there is,
yes,
besides
exactly.
Besides the fact that it's there to have this weird backstory and a reason why his benefactor's son would want to kill him, there's nothing about this story besides him making an evil version of the Knight Rider car, which is a truck. There's nothing about it that requires him to look like Michael. Like, you could do this story and he doesn't look like Michael, and it doesn't change.
Also, what a bunch of shade they're throwing at the truck drivers of America.
you have to understand how popular between 1975 and 1986 the concept of an evil semi-truck was.
That's right. We did have quite a few different movies that had evil semi-trucks in them.
It was just like something and yet, you know who turned that around? A little man named Optimus Prime.
So
a good semi-truck.
We should also talk about basically, we mentioned it a little bit briefly earlier, but like Garth's army or his like henchmen are basically made up of members of the Pan-African Liberation Movement. He's meeting with someone that he met, I guess, while he was in an African prison, an African military general named Sambe Kuna. And he's come to America to meet with him about something. And it's probably something to do with Goliath. Again, I'm not sure how having a strong truck would help you overthrow a government, but who knows?
Maybe like I assume if part 2 makes any sense, they'll be like, hey, we're going to give you the formula to put on tanks and planes.
I mean, it might be that Red Bluff is like a because it has missiles in it. So I was getting a little confused. I think maybe that where they were building Goliath was Red Bluff, but it's not. It's a different facility, and Red Bluff is a weapon storage facility. So maybe they're going to try to break into Red Bluff.
Maybe that could,
and then get the missiles from there so that they can use the missiles to overthrow the government, which would make more sense than using a big truck.
But also put it on
a big truck.
A big truck. If you're doing warfare overseas in a place that maybe doesn't have nice wide lane roads all the way to where you're going to attack, perhaps some other vehicle besides a semi-truck.
Yeah, maybe a tank or something. But
maybe a tank. Like an airplane that you couldn't shoot down, probably pretty useful.
Yeah.
Don't give it a personality, though. Why does we had this conversation. Why does Kitt have a personality?
I don't know. I think there must be something about it in the first season, like some sort of thing. I mean, it's an AI car, which is what the future's going to. Everybody, we're talking about AI a lot these days, and they were already on top of it back in the 80s.
And also, it is also much like our current AI, stupid, because he has to look up where Red Bluffs is, and literally it's this really dumb back and forth where like every conversation between the car and Michael is stupid because they're both dumb, and him talking to the car is funny, but like Michael has to tell him like, hey, maybe a place called Red Bluffs isn't in the city, and like his amazing computer still can't the concept that a computer could reference the entire map of America within seconds, which would happen, I don't know, by 92.
Yeah.
Like is so out of, it isn't even comprehensible to them that their supercomputer future car can't do this. It has a literal physical map that it scans around. Like that's what's impress us. Like looking for the words Red Bluff.
So fun little thing.
Not looking up a database, not looking up government information, not looking up satellite information. No, it's just reading a fucking map for him.
Fun.
And it doesn't look, and it won't look far enough away from where they're at, unless Michael tells him, hey, maybe it's not in the city. It's called Bluffs.
Look in the mountains. Funny little thing. So Kitt has his own Wikipedia page because, of course, and it talks a lot about how all the different permutations of Kitt throughout the different series and pilot films and new series that happened. And I guess apparently when they were first filming, Kitt was just voiced by a script assistant. And then William Daniels did his dialogue later, and he didn't even meet David Hasselhoff until like 6 months after they had been filming. And Kitt apparently has an evil twin called Carr, Karr.
Yeah, I remember that now.
Which was voiced by Peter Cullen, Optimus Prime.
Back when professional voice actors got work.
Yeah, and apparently Val Kilmer voiced Kitt in the 2008 Knight Rider series,
Which was terrible.
which is, pretty wild. So anyway, we're kind of going long.
Sometimes
here.
you're the Batman. Sometimes you're the Batmobile.
So we're kind of going long on this, even though not much happened. So let's kind of like wrap this episode up. So we get shots. They go to commercial a couple times, and every time they do, it's on a still of Garth's face as it shrinks into a box into some footage of the big truck driving right at Kitt, and it like freeze frames. They do that twice in the episode. And you're like, okay, well, I get this. This is coming. So then finally we get to a point where Michael kind of gets close to where this facility is. He goes in and finally comes face to face with Goliath, this big truck. And it also has the molecular bonded shell technology on it. So they're kind of a little concerned by, not knowing what they're going to do. So they ride right at each other. And Michael's going to try to like knock out the front wheel. But of course, this plan goes poorly. And the truck basically destroys Kitt and knocks it over and crashes. And they use little toys to do this, which is fun. This is a fun way to do this stunt scene, because there's no way they were rolling cars. They just have fun little toys.
Fun little toys, and like, hey, you can buy these toys. They're not gonna say that to you, but they had merch.
Yeah, and it crashes the car and it rolls over, and
to be continued.
It's to be continued, which we know what's coming, obviously, but everything is going to be fine. We're not concerned that Michael is dead, because this would be a weird way to start season 2.
It'd be really weird if like Kitt is indestructible unless you knocked him over.
Yeah, it's like those cool AI robots that had a problem walking upstairs.
I wonder if Kitt could play Doom or Skyrim.
Well, he could play blackjack, as he shows.
Well, and that's what made me think about it. It was like they have an argument about gambling, which once again, why would you make this? Why would you make an AI for your car that has an opinion about gambling? But he has a rudimentary Commodore 64 gambling app on his screen. And I was thinking like, man, it'd be cool if he played Skyrim. I mean, had a little nice port of that. He could go do that while driving, because Michael doesn't actually have to drive, even though he's got a cool steering wheel like it's a fucking spaceship.
Yeah, it is pretty funny. Like, he has time to look at a computer screen playing blackjack, or look at a monitor when he's getting a video feed from Devon. But like
Devon and the mechanic are always so fucking casual on these things.
Yeah, they just
like they're always sprawled out, and they're like they're smiling, like they're like when they're telling him that like shit's going down, they still have smiles on their faces.
Yeah, they're just hanging out on a plane drinking.
Yeah, like no one is concerned about this at all. Like that is my main takeaway from part 1 is no one is that upset.
I think Devon does get kidnapped at the end of this, because when he goes to confront Elizabeth, Garth is there, and Garth is like, "You remind me of my father, which is why I hate you." So I think he gets kidnapped at some point. So we'll probably find out what happens to him.
His plan was so bad.
It would be funny though if we come back in part 2 and he's just like, "Yeah, he was really mean to me, and then I went home."
And then I went home and had a nap.
So I think that's gonna do it for this episode of Center of Weirdness, Goliath Part 1. I think we should not rate this one yet until we've seen how Part 2 plays out, because maybe it will address some of our issues.
I think it is originally a whole instead of a half. It would be unfair of us to not seeing the entire brilliance of the Goliath episode.
I agree.
As it was meant to be seen.
That's right. So,
and it should only cost us 1 rental, but it cost us 2.
Fair enough. Yeah, that's how they're getting us, because we can't. These are not streaming for free, so we are buying the episodes that we are covering
for you. All 5 of you.
Yeah, for the few people that listen to our podcast. But we're going to wrap it up here. We're going to be back with Goliath Part 2 in just a few weeks' time. So you'll need to come back if you want to hear our thoughts on the rest of this exciting storyline. I wonder how much they'll pad the second half of the episode.
Well, we're gonna pad a lot this summer with Knight Rider because this is neither the beginning nor even close to the end.
That's right. We'll be covering Goliath Part 2 and then Goliath Returns Part 1 and 2 later on this summer. So you're gonna get 4 back-to-back episodes on Knight Rider. So I hope everybody's excited about that.
We really should have got Peter Collins in for this.
Yeah, he'll do the voiceover for the podcast. He'll record some fun stuff at the beginning and explain how we're, we're journeying into darkness and podcast hosts who don't exist or whatever. But until next time, when we're back talking about Goliath Part 2, I've been Josh.
I've been Skinner.
And we want you to keep it weird and keep riding.
Ride hard.
Ride through the night.
Yourself. Face yourself head on.
When we come back for Part 2, I'll have a cool mustache and goatee.
And just be way more monotone.
That's right. You've been listening to Center of Weirdness. If you like this show, rate and review us wherever you find it, but especially on Apple Podcasts. You can listen to every episode at centerofweird.com, where you can also find all of the old Predictocast episodes. And if you want to get in touch with us to tell us about a show we should cover, hit us up on Twitter at WeirdCenter. As always, thanks for listening.